All
Hello.
right. Hello, Michael. How you doing?
Oh, getting ready to show people some product.
That's always fun. It's always fun. For
Absolutely.
the, yeah. For those of you who are there, we'll get started in just almost a minute. Just want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to log on. We'll start about 1 minute officially after the hour. So hang tight. But otherwise, thank you for joining, and we'll get started shortly.
Hmm. So, how's the weather where you're at today?
For me, it is typical May weather in Northern California. It's already warm, sunny. We probably won't see rain again until November or December, so it's always fun.
Yeah, where I'm at, it's been raining all week,
We're jealous.
and it, yeah, but it's now turned into a soggy mess.
Gotcha. Fun stuff. All right, well, let's get started. Everyone, thank you for joining this SupportLogic webinar. We're calling it Don't Just Predict Escalations, Prevent Them. I'm Martin Schneider. I'm Chief Evangelist and Head of Solutions Marketing at SupportLogic. With me is Michael Walkup, who's a Senior Solutions Consultant with us at SupportLogic. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm. My
Right.
pleasure.
That's great. Now, let's get into the agenda here. We're going to talk about the importance of investing in support experience, kind of take a step back before we dive into escalations and talk about their impact. You're probably already feeling it, but we do want to dig in a little bit, right? And then we want to talk about, why SupportLogic, why use our tool for escalation management, which means prediction and prevention. And of course, right, more importantly, you want to see escalation prediction and prevention in action. That's where Michael's going to come in. He's going to give you a live demo of the SupportLogic solution for escalation prediction and prevention. And then we'll take any questions that you have. So sit tight with those. If you do have a question at any time you want to log it before you forget it, there's a little Q&A right on the side panel there. Click in there and you can type in your question and we'll get to it at the end. So thank you for that. Now, let's dive in a bit and really wanted to, again, talk about the impact of the support experience. More and more for businesses in, all different types, just B2B and technology, even in some retail, the support experience is really impacting the brand experience, right? And more we're finding, all these statistics that talk about how people, customers, consumers, whether it's B2B or B2C, are expecting more. Because what are we seeing? We're seeing a big shift in how businesses work. We've gone from kind of what they used to call the product economy and people selling products to the subscription economy and people subscribing to either software or content and data, things like that. So everything's moved towards that kind of contract world where you need to win the customer's business every month or every year or every few years. And that represents a basic, paradigm shift in how you provide a support experience to the customer. Because if they're not getting a good one, chances are there's a lot more options out there than there used to be that they can leave, right? So there's a lot of stats on here. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but there's also a lot of percentages. So it kind of made me think of, well, let's find out, how you guys are measuring your escalation rates. So if you go over to the poll section, I'm going to open up the poll. And I'd love for you guys to select the answers here. What percentage of your cases are escalated today? So really trying to get a baseline and figuring out how many of your cases get escalated. They don't just get, solved in one, first case resolution. And you might have different rules. And we'll talk a bit about escalations and what types of escalations in a bit. But I'm really curious to see what percentage of your cases are escalating. So I'm going to take a minute here, let you read some of these wonderful statistics that I've put together to really drive home the value of the support experience and investing in the support experience. And I'm going to watch and see the poll results come in, and then I'll share them in a minute. I'm watching them come in, and I'm actually kind of fascinated.
I as well am kind of glued to this as it's updating with the numbers. I'm actually rather surprised at the results.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting things where you kind of get, it's not quite a law of excluded middles. It's
Yeah.
kind of like it's an interesting kind of hopscotch that I'm seeing here. But I'm going to wait about a few more seconds. But it looks like we're starting to teeter off there, and I'll close and I'll share that poll in a second. But it's really interesting, yeah. So I'm going to close the poll now. Hopefully, you all got the chance. And in sharing that, the interesting thing is almost half, about 44%, 44.5%, less than 2% are escalating. Now, that's interesting because, it seems like, oh, only 2%. But if you have 100,000 cases in a year, that's a lot of cases, right? That's potentially, 1,000 or more customers, depending on how many, escalated cases per customer that you have, that could potentially churn or leave or just not buy more from you. That's a big deal. And then it goes up to 11% for 2 to 5%. And that's kind of where we typically see a lot of our customers lately are in that 2 to 5, under 10% range, 6 to 10%. 33% of you said it's 6 to 10%. And then what was really surprising is, more than 10, a little over 11% said more than 10%. So, really just goes to show you what we're doing here at SupportLogic, and one of our key feature sets of escalation prediction and management and prevention, a lot of value potential there for your organization. If you could get that 10%, think about, and we're going to talk about the cost of these. Think about if you can get that 10% down to 8%, down to 6%, 5%, get that in half. That's really huge because, think about the happier customers. Think about the faster time to resolution, the happier agents, because they're not dealing with, doing far less exasperated customers. So that's really, really awesome. Great responses there. Very eye-opening, right? Because again, it's really important. And I just really want to underscore that the support experience is critical to revenue, right? We're talking about, percentage of escalations, but at the end of the day, a customer can escalate at any time through the course of the relationship. I'm talking about, the subscription model, but more and more companies, especially in B2B technology and consumer technology, are following what they call PLG, or product-led growth, where people come to a website, they trial a product, or they get the free version, see if they want to buy it. That's kind of that land strategy, right? And if they don't have a good experience, and if they need to reach out to somebody to figure something out, and that doesn't go well, they may never become customers and you've lost them forever. That's not great, right? And in the expand side of things, if you're looking to sell more to every customer, you're looking to expand on your revenue to grow as a company, if you're not having a great support experience, that customer doesn't trust you, right? That's not great, right? And then when it comes to retention, right? That's the easy one, right? If they're not having a good experience through the life cycle of using your product, are they going to buy again? Are they going to renew? Right. So it really becomes critical to provide a great support experience. And escalations are those spikes where you can obviously tell something's not going great. And if you can reduce them over each one of these phases, chances are you're going to expand, or increase the likelihood of landing more customers, expanding more deals, and retaining more customers, which means more revenue, but not just more revenue, but more profitable revenue, which is even more important these days, right? Because at the end of the day, and what we like to see is kind of our vision or our mission, the way we see the world, is that companies can grow and protect their revenue only if they understand and act on unbiased customer signals from every service interaction in real time across all sources. I'll talk a bit more about what that means in terms of how we put together the technology that Michael's going to show you when it comes to escalation prediction. But it really comes down to, understanding the customer in new ways, using data sources that before the technologies we used in the support center just didn't understand or couldn't ingest and make sense of all the unstructured data in your customer case interactions, whether those are emails back and forth, chat and call transcripts, all these things. It's just tons and tons of insights that are hidden in that unstructured data. And great thing is, like, companies like SupportLogic using AI and ML and NLP, all those crazy three-letter acronym terms, to actually start to understand it and make sense in a way that's purpose-built and easy for you. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. Because at the end of the day, we really want to understand, the cost of our escalations, what we're doing, because the impact is huge, right? Escalated cases cost up to 10 times the cost of a typical support case. So that reminds me, we have another great poll. if you go down and I'm going to open this one and go to the poll section, there's an open poll on how much does an escalated case cost versus regular escalation for you. Now, we've got a lot of options here. So is it twice the cost? Is it 3 times the cost? Is it 5 times the cost? Or is it 10 times the cost? Or what we discover when we talk to some customers, they don't even know. It's hard for them to calculate that cost. They usually just know it's a lot. So if you go over to the poll section and take that, you might scroll down. I've kind of done these a little out of order, but if you see multiple polls, but we're seeing sometimes come in. I'll let this go for about another minute. Again, seeing some interesting, but not surprising results.
I'm not seeing anybody go for twice the cost.
Because these are expensive, and we know that.
Yes.
we know escalations are costly, right? I think, you kind of put the, what's interesting is I'm not seeing any 10 times either, which is really interesting because I've read in a lot of actual research from places like TSIA and other, very reputable sources that it's about 7 to 10 sometimes. But I think that varies by industry, right? All right, now I'm going to close the poll and then I'll share the results. And guys, thank you for these responses. These are awesome. As Michael implied, we had no one that said it was twice the cost. About almost 30% said about 3 times the cost, which is lower than I expected to see anyone put in, but that's still a lot. Think of it, triple X the amount of your cost. And some, we talk to customers and their escalations are so expensive because they have complex products. They've got really, really skilled engineers that have good salaries and good benefits and all these things. Their cost per case can sometimes be up to $1,000 for a regular case because they take days to solve. There's a lot involved. There's multiple people typically. Engineers need to be pulled in. And when you times that by 3, it gets really expensive. We saw about another almost 30% at 5 times the cost, which again, it seems about in line with what we're seeing in that between 5 and 10. Strangely, no one had an idea of 10 times the cost. No one's seeing it as 10 times, but almost half of you, 45.5% about, said you're not sure. Now, what I would really love to offer up for those of you who are not sure is reach out to us. We've got some great experts inside, and we work with some great third-party consultants who are kind of advisors to the company who can actually help you figure that out. Because it's really important to start, looking at your costs in that way, right? Obviously. But that's one of the first places to start is by understanding the impact of the escalations from a cost perspective. You can actually start to, what I would say, kind of like sell internally the importance of building programs to attack those escalations, predict them and reduce them, right? So it's really, one of the first phases is understanding that impact and being able to articulate that pain to people like the CFO, right? You can say, hey, this is costing us a lot of money. Let's do something about it. And of course, at the end of the day, escalations, they sap the agent and manager resources and they lead to burnout. Right now, we're dealing with, everything from the pandemic to the great resignation and the whatever they call it, the great reshuffling. People are leaving support at an even higher level than before. We knew it was a high attrition industry, so to speak, right? And a lot of that is because constant firefighting, being in a reactive mode, running around trying to solve every problem in a way that isn't programmatic and doesn't have intelligence behind it, just leads to burnout, both for managers and agents. And people don't stick around when they're burnt out, right? And almost, really important to the business is escalations deteriorate customer trust and they cause potential churn. We know that. This is obvious, but when you think about it, it's not only is it costly in the end, it's costly as you go there, because we're talking about some people 5 times the cost. So you're dragging down resources, you're spending a lot of money in the support center, and then you lose that customer in the end. That's just terrible, right? How can we at least split the difference in some of that to save money and keep customers around, to increase lifetime value, protect and grow that revenue, provide a great support experience by reducing escalations, right? The escalation rate. So great stuff there. I do, before we move on, I do want to ask, because there's a lot of different types of escalations. And I want to open the last poll before we move on, because I want to get an idea of the type of escalations you're seeing, because the causes or the categories of escalation can be very different. So when you go to the new open poll, you can start answering that. Some people they have little check boxes in their ticketing system or on a self-service portal where the customer can just say, I want this escalated. We just did, we've been talking with some of our customers and they say, yeah, we put that on our portal. And then some people were just escalating immediately. Not saying it's the worst thing to do, not saying it's the smartest thing to do, but sometimes the customer's the one causing it. Sometimes it's the technology, right? Is it a technical issue that they're having, and that's cause the escalation? And sometimes maybe it's known and you're almost going out saying, we need to escalate this on our own because we know the problem is our technology and we need to get ahead of that. Sometimes is it skills based, right? It's getting stuck because the agent can't solve the problem, right? They don't have either the knowledge or the soft skills or whatever it is, right? Sometimes it can be a mix of those. So let's take another 20, 30 seconds to consider those, and then we'll review those. This is great. This is a good mix.
This is fantastic. I'm a little surprised. Well, now I'm no longer surprised. Some of it updated. There was one that was a little low, and now it's climbing back up. So it makes it's making more sense.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to close the poll in about 5 seconds. Thank you guys for these. These are always great responses. This is awesome. All right, now where did we do? Where did we land? Interestingly enough, but not super surprisingly, about 37.5% are saying customer are the types of escalations, which, makes sense, right? Customers get impatient. What we learn, which is always interesting, just a kind of interesting tidbit is, and I'd love to hear from you guys, maybe in the comments or the chat, is when we analyze escalations, we realize cases are more likely to escalate sooner after being created than later. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it really does make sense. People typically have a case, and if it's really critical, then it's going to get escalated pretty fast, right? If it's not getting, regardless of SLA, let's call it. So it's kind of interesting that customer took the highest one, but then it even split at 25% between technical and skills based, and I think that kind of makes sense. And then 12.5% saying other, and I'd like to hear what those other ones are. So if you'd like to chat those to us or think about that, because that's really fascinating to me. All right, so that is awesome. So let's move on and just talk a bit more about how we do things, why we do things, and how we can help you predict and prevent escalation. So one of the things that makes us interesting, right, is the fact that unlike other kind of survey-based responses or other types of analytics tools, we are analyzing 100% of the case interactions. It's not a sampling, it's not surveys, not other things, so it really is a true voice of the customer in order to understand what's happening. And we're doing this on a continuous basis, right? We're constantly ingesting and analyzing the interactions to look at historical trends and also obviously make predictions and where things are going to happen in the future. So we use a lot of supervised and unsupervised machine learning. Won't get all deep into that, but the idea is we're looking at everything. Therefore, it's we kind of got you covered. Really interesting, and not a lot of approaches to escalations or even support operations do it that way, or voice of the customer, right? And the great thing is that we're built for B2B. Now, you might be coming from different industries, but what that means is it really comes down to the fact that, especially around escalations, is we understand the subtleties of B2B. A lot of times you'll see analytics tools that could say, oh, well, sentiment-based tools say that if a customer starts cursing on the phone, they're probably going to escalate in a B2C scenario because it's a bank, or financial services, and you charge them a fee they don't think they deserved or something like that. Well, that's pretty obvious, right? But in B2B, if you look at email exchanges that go over, a few days or sometimes weeks, seeing if that's trending towards an escalation, it's a lot more subtle. People don't curse at each other in business parlance, right? And things like that. So it's an interesting but subtle and very important difference in being built for B2B. And then the workflow, really the fact that we can connect back into your systems of record, like your ticketing and CRM systems, to go and take action from these predictive insights. That's huge, right? Because now you're actually, again, doing the management and the prevention, not just the prediction, right? And the great thing is this is all cloud solutions that, utilize a lot of great cutting edge technology for fast, impressive ROI. Typically when once people get up and running in a few weeks, they're seeing results in about a month or so, because the fact that it's about, ingest all this data and start using the historical and the now to start making predictions about the future. So it's a really great purpose-built solution to get up and running fast. And that's why people see a lot of success with us. Now, what do they do? What are they using when it comes to predicting and preventing escalations? Well, of course, SupportLogic SX platform has a number of applications. But if you look at the ones that are kind of circled here on the left, when you put predict and prevent together, which has the signal extraction. And if any of you joined us on about a month ago, we did a similar webinar around the signal extraction and how we use all those things that we pull out of that unstructured data to make sense, sentiment analysis, the cadence between the customer and the agent, past histories, things like that. All that type of stuff builds up. And then we kind of purpose build it against, I think it's 40 or 60 escalation factors. We can start to get into that actual, predicting and preventing the escalation, and then we tie it into the workflow. So those are the two kind of main kind of core modules that we have inside the SX platform, the Support Experience platform, dedicated really around that signal extraction and preventing escalations, predicting and preventing escalations. So that's where the kind of product lies out. That's what people apply to it. And again, like I said, the customers love this. I mean, because it's just, silver plattering them these predictions around their key customers when and if they might escalate, and allowing them to take, early action. Because especially in B2B, you look at a lot of these customers here, Nutanix, Click, Databricks, Rubrik, they're seeing, almost immediately seeing huge reductions in their escalations. Why? Because especially in B2B, it's not that I'm on the phone in a B2C scenario and I'm angry and I escalate. I want to talk to your manager. It doesn't work that way in B2B. And most of you probably already know that. So if we can tell you 2 or 3 days, if down to a few hours, that something might be escalating, and you can get ahead of that and show whether it's your engineers going out there or if it's even sharing that with customer success and getting the right people ahead of that, you're providing a better experience, a better support experience. You're neutralizing the situation, even if the issue that is getting escalated is still happening, but you're dealing with it and doing it in a proactive way. You're providing a better support experience, a better customer experience, and therefore elevating the relationship. And they're more likely to trust you more. They're going to buy more. All that good benevolent cycle stuff that happens when you're predicting and acting on those predictions with our solutions, right? So with that, I wanted to quickly jump over to Michael, and proof is in the pudding. Michael, I'm going to stop sharing so you can start sharing and jump us right into the live demo.
Righto. All right. Let me find my appropriate tab. Here we go. Share. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
I know I can.
Brilliant. So now we are looking at this at the SupportLogic console. This is going to be one of the first places that your managers, whichever support persons, whichever management directors are going to come into to start getting that the idea of what's going on. This first console, we can see things like what's coming up at, things that have escalated, things that need attention, negative sentiments, and we can start digging into it, and we can show these grouped by any by our by some of the signals that we're looking for, but then we can also sort them out by whatever metadata that we're pulling from the ticket from your CRM or ticketing system, so that we can organize this in a way that's meaningful to you. I've got it sorted by priority. I can see, hey, this one's got a critical issue flagged. This one has a call request, and it shows that it's escalated today. This one's showing likely to escalate with another critical issue. Now from here, I can actually open up the individual ticket. Now, I'm not going into, Salesforce or Zendesk or anything else directly from here, but I am able to ingest it and work with it and write back to it if need be. Now, on this view, I've got a lot of information. Up top, I can see where it's coming from. I can see what signals that we've pulled from the, from the exchange, from the customer, from the agent, if there's been any internal, whether or not there's any risk signals, any of the metadata, as well as an overall customer number, so that we can see the health of that customer over time. So, have there been higher or lower scores for this customer based on sentiment, based on need. Then we can also get into our sentiment and attention scores. Our sentiment's going to actually look at the conversation, look for verbiage, and give us an idea of how happy, how unhappy the exchange has been, along with an attention score, letting us know, hey, if it's higher, this is more likely to need attention. This is something that needs to be worked on right now. These are like a couple of the top level things that your supervisors, your managers are going to be able to use to start deciding, hey, what needs to be dealt with now? What needs to be pushed to the front? But now that we've got that idea, okay, here are the ones I need to deal with. Here are the tickets that need my direct attention. What am I going to do with it? Well, now that I've got that, I can see the specific signals, the call request and production issue. And I can actually click on this and get down to where that issue is and start getting an idea of what's happening within this ticket and what the issue is. Now, I can now decide, hey, let me reassign this because I know Julius may not be the right person for this. And I can see, hey, I can see that he's got a high workload, and I can even get into it and start getting a real good idea of, hey, what's his time overlap with the customer's, active hours? What skills are being used? What's the complexity of the case? And how well has Julius's experience with this customer been over time, along with his bandwidth? We have a case assignment system. These are the ML models that we're using to assign the tickets. So if I get to a point where I realize Julius is not right for this, let me bring in the next person. It's going to sort me the number of people from his queue, from his work group, with the most appropriate on top. So I've got Andre right here. I can see what he's got. I can see he's got a slightly lower complexity match, but he's got a much better time overlap, and he's not quite as high on his on his bandwidth utilization. So I can immediately reassign this to him. But let's say I've got somebody in the back of house, someone who is not part of the support system, and I need to bring in a product manager or a programmer or anyone else. So I can highlight this, and I can now bring in an external person. So I can annotate this, and I can do an @mention to someone else and bring them in to assist with this issue. And I can reach out to them. Now, Jono, who I've reached out to, doesn't have to be a assigned user of a licensed user of Zendesk, of Salesforce, of whatever ticketing or CRM system you have. But with our swarming feature, our swarming licenses, they can get into the ticket from here and still add case notes, even reply to the customer directly from here if they have a resolution ready to go. Now we can see, all right, we've got the individual attentions, we can see the individual signals, we can drive in, but what's going on with my individual escalations? What if I just need to see what's happening? Now, I apologize for these numbers. This is my demo org, so every ticket I have in here has oodles of signals, so I hope it doesn't look like this for you. But I can now see my list of, hey, what's most likely to escalate, what just escalated, and where are my active ones. So now that I have those all in front of me, I know what's happening, I know what's on fire, and I also know what's starting to get hot. And I know how to deal with them appropriately. I see the signals, I see what level of urgency, case activity, responsiveness is coming on the ones likely to escalate. I can see the exact signals in the ones that have escalated with whatever quotation we found, and very quickly being able to identify the sentiment score and the attention score, along with the ability to again open up that individual ticket and do that same work that I was doing before. Just about from every screen, every single report. You can get into the individual ticket from anywhere, to be able to get into it, annotate it, bring in other folks, reassign whatever needs to be done. Martin, have you seen any other questions come in through the through the chat that I need to identify and speak to? I'm not seeing any.
Not right now. I think we're good.
Okay. All right. But as we move forward, we can, once we have all this, and of course, the tool is rather, expansive, so I can only really give you guys a little bit of a teaser. But once we have all that, we can now get into some of the metrics of what's going on. We can see how well our SLAs are being met, the efficiency, and the relative customer experience, both pulling from the results that we're producing, and even some of the information coming from your system of record. We can also start searching for keyword information, but not just specific keywords. With our NLP model, if I'm looking for something like Amazon, every mention of Amazon Web Services, it's going to find everything else that's related. So it knows that, hey, I see Amazon Web Services, but I'm also identifying Amazon S3. It would also, find things like Redshift or any other Amazon Web Services tools, as well as I could change how I'm searching. And if I search for something like public cloud, it's also going to start pinging on things like Azure, like Google Cloud, like Amazon Web Services, AWS, to give me that expansive, view of what's happening and who's saying what where. And we can get down really into the information. Are we seeing any number of feature requests coming from our tickets? Are we seeing negative sentiments, and where are they coming from in both our closed, open, and new cases? And really have that same ability to dig into the data and sort it out in a way that starts becoming meaningful to you, so that you can start being more proactive instead of reactive with your customers. And as we dig deeper, we can see things like the patterns of different, different sentiments and sentiment scores. Where are they coming from in relation to any of the pieces of metadata from your tickets or the information that we've pulled? So if I want to view by different components of our products, I can now start searching and seeing, hey, where is this coming in from? What's my average looking like? What's my mean? And what are the individual cases? So even from here, I can get into the specific case, find that mention, and start analyzing and start thinking about, hey, this is what's happening. This is where it happened with this customer. On down to specific sentiment score, and what our sentiments have looked like over time on a day-by-day basis, on a ticket-by-ticket basis, being able to quickly view, this is what happened, this is what's going on, and here's the suggested resolution to it. I do see one question from Stanislav. So I think, he was asking, how do you find ideas where to be proactive and predictive for support? I think I was able to touch on that a little bit here in the last few minutes. You saw how we, evaluate and estimate. We ingest the information, we see what's going on, and we also pull, 1 year plus of historical data, sometimes 2 years, from your ticketing system, and run that through our ML model and our AI models to start understanding what those signals are, as well as within the tickets themselves. You can come in and identify and label different pieces of the ticket as different signals that we need to start paying attention to. So being able to, find different things, highlight them, and go, hey, this is what it is. This is the kind of signal I'm looking for. So you can now start taking our out of the box tool and start turning it into a very customized, bespoke experience for your organization. And when it comes to things like, the ROI and the cost, that's on an individual basis. And that's something that if you contact us, we can go through that. And we have a number of, consultants, as well as a number of different calculations that we can do to be able to bring that up.
Yeah. And just to give a very ballpark figure, when you look at we already did the poll around the escalations and the rate of escalation. When we reduce escalations by as little as 20-25%, and it's usually almost twice that, we're typically doing around a 7 to 9x ROI in terms of return on investment for every dollar you spend with us, because of the mean time to resolution, the time we're saving, the reduced cost of the escalations, but also the amount of time that managers and agents can be more productive, especially in a time where it's hard to hire. It's hard to staff, and it's hard to retain staff. We're allowing you to do more with less. So if you were going to, we've had customers say, oh, we're going to spend X hiring this many people. Well, you only need to, if you were going to hire 10, you only need to hire 4 or 5. And you save a lot of money that way. And then we start to calculate the ROI and the real hard dollars ROI, it becomes substantial.
We have the solution support just English, any other language support available? That's a complicated question. We do, like most of what we do, especially when it comes to signal tracking, is in English, but we can do a lot of it in any language. The issue is that it's difficult for us to QA if it's in another language.
Exactly.
All right. So.
Great. Now, we have a few more questions that we do want to get through, because I do want to make sure we do answer all your questions. There's a couple more here. Does the AI models learn over time? Absolutely.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, if you want to go a little deeper, I could provide some color on that. But if you want to go a little deeper on how it
so, a lot of it comes from when you identify things within the tool, and this is something that we ask you to do. A lot of during the rollout period, it gives our data scientists something to work with and to identify, to be able to update the model, as well as flagging specific things within your own specific instance of the tool.
Yep. Another question, and then we'll probably wrap it up, because I think we're hitting all of them. A couple were similar in that regard. Yeah. How long does it take to train the model?
That's one of those things that can get very fuzzy, but for most of our customers, it's 30 to 90 days to get, it takes 90% of people 30 to 90 days to get there. Some take a little bit longer. It just depends on the complexity of your organization, but most everybody gets there within 3 months. As you saw with the slide that Martin showed earlier, with the with the results that were coming from some of our customers, they were all seeing those in the first 90 to 120 days.
Exactly. All right. Well, Michael, thank you for that demo. Thank you for the insight on all the questions. And thank you all for joining us. We'll make the replay of this available on SupportLogic.com. If you want to learn more, obviously go to SupportLogic.com. You can request a demo with us, a deep dive to maybe talk a little bit more about your exact needs around signal extraction, being more proactive, escalation prediction, churn analysis, all the other awesome things that we do. But also, if you want to learn more about escalations, we had a great panel on escalations at SX Live. And if you weren't an attendee of SX Live, you weren't aware of SX Live, this is a really great virtual event we did last month. And you can check out all of the content on demand at sxlive.com. And you can also, when you register there, you'll become part of the SX Live community. We'll be doing a lot more virtual and in-person events around the country and around the world in the future. It's a really, really cool concept that we're really excited about. And definitely check that out. Go to SupportLogic.com and also go to sxlive.com. And with that, everyone, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Everyone, have a lovely day.